Today, we're diving into one of the most well-known stories in the world, the story of the Great Flood. It's a powerful narrative about destruction and survival, but maybe more than anything, it's about a new beginning. Before we get into the details, it's worth asking, why are we so drawn to stories about a total reset? The idea of a second chance, of wiping the slate clean and just starting again, that's a really powerful theme, right? This ancient story is maybe the ultimate exploration of that very idea. Okay, so to really understand the flood, we have to first understand the world that came before it. The story doesn't just start with rain. It starts with a reason, a world that it had reached a breaking point. The way the book of Genesis tells it, the state of humanity had really gone downhill. The story paints this picture of a society that wasn't just a little flawed, but was corrupt to its core and just filled with violence. This wasn't a small problem. It was the defining feature of the time. And the language the text uses is incredibly strong. It's not just talking about bad actions, but about the very heart of human motivation, every inclination of the thoughts of his heart. So the problem is shown as being total and just constant. Now, this is a really crucial point. The decision to bring a flood isn't shown as some act of cold, distant anger. Instead, the story really emphasizes this feeling of deep sorrow. The text says God was grieved and that his heart was filled with pain. It frames the whole thing not as rage, but as a tragic, painful decision. But right in the middle of all this darkness and corruption, the story pivots. It introduces one major exception to the rule. And with that exception comes this extraordinary plan for survival. And that exception is a man named Noah. He's totally set apart from the world around him. The text describes him as a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time. And because of his character, he becomes the center of this plan to preserve life. So Noah is given this monumental task: build an ark. And the instructions he gets are super specific. Every detail is laid out, from the kind of wood to use, to how to waterproof it with pitch, to its 3-deck interior. This thing was meant to be a vessel engineered for survival. And just try to imagine the scale of this project. The dimensions given in Genesis would make the ark about 450 feet long. To give you some perspective, that's longer than a football field and a half. This was a massive, massive structure. So what was this giant boat for? Well, it was basically designed to be a floating sanctuary. On board, you'd have Noah and his family, plus a representation of all animal life. 2 of every single kind, plus 7 pairs of what the text calls clean animals. And of course, they had to store enough food to keep everyone alive for the journey. With the ark all finished and everyone safely inside, the next chapter of the story kicks off. The door is shut, and then the rains begin. Now, this flood wasn't just a quick storm. It was a long, drawn-out event. It rains for 40 days and 40 nights. And the text also says the springs of the great deep burst open. The water keeps rising for 150 days before it even starts to go down. It's not until the 7th month that the ark finally lands on a mountain range. The scale of the destruction described is just immense. The waters rise until they cover even the highest mountains. The text makes it clear that every living thing on the face of the earth perished. Only Noah and those with him in the ark were left. After months and months of just floating on the water, the story's tone starts to shift. It goes from judgment and survival to hope and discovery. The long wait is almost over, and the first hints of a new world are about to appear. I've always loved this part of the story. It's so patient. Noah doesn't just throw open the doors. He tests things out. First he sends a raven, then a dove, but it comes back. So he waits a whole week and sends the dove out again. This time it comes back with an olive leaf, a perfect symbol of new life. He waits another 7 days, sends it out a final time, and it doesn't return. The earth is ready. Can you imagine? After more than a year inside that ark, God tells Noah it's time to come out. So he, his family, and all the animals step out onto dry land. This is it. This is the moment of the new beginning, the very first day of a cleansed and renewed world. But the story doesn't just end there with a fresh start. What comes next is one of the most important moments in the whole narrative. God establishes a promise, a special kind of promise called a covenant. And this idea is foundational for so much of what follows in the biblical story. And the key thing to see here is this powerful shift. The very same thing that was used for judgment, water, is now at the center of a promise of preservation. The story does a complete 180. from destruction to an unbreakable guarantee for the future. And here is that promise, stated clearly and directly in the text. It's a pledge with no strings attached. And it's not just a promise to Noah or even to humanity, but to all life, setting up a whole new relationship between God and his creation. So that word, covenant, it's really important. It means a lot more than just a simple promise. Think of it like a formal, binding, sacred agreement. In this story, it's a pact that God makes with all living things for all generations to come.
You know, these ancient covenants, they always had a physical sign, a tangible reminder of the promise that was made. And for this one, the sign is a rainbow. It's presented as a reminder not just for people to see, but for God to see and remember the promise to never again destroy the earth by a flood.
So, after all this time, why does this ancient story still capture our imagination? Well, the answer is probably in its deep, universal themes. When you really boil it down, the story is holding these huge ideas in balance. You see judgment on wickedness, sure, but you also see mercy shown to Noah and his family. You see the importance of one person's faithfulness, Noah's obedience to build that ark, in a world of complete chaos. And at its heart, it really is a story about the incredible hope that comes with the ultimate second chance. And that really brings us to the final thought. The story of the flood is fundamentally about renewal. It leaves us with a world that's been washed clean and a promise for its future. And it kind of invites us to think, what does it really mean to be given a second chance? And how can we live in a way that reflects that kind of hope?